Tonight, less than 50 days until Election Day, and the campaign trail is heating up. The latest on the race for the White House. Plus,
violence and threats of violence are always wrong.
A rise in hate crimes across the country, what it means for America's Jewish community. And
Jesus was a refugee, so he identifies with what the Haitians are going through.
As the fallout from the former president's comments about eating pets persists,
Haitians are targeting for something they don't do.
Some Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, turn to their faith. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Explosions across Lebanon today in what appears to be a major Israeli attack against Hezbollah. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation from CBN's global headquarters in Virginia Beach. I'm John Jessup. Well, Lebanon's health minister says at least 9 people are dead and more than 2,700 wounded by exploding pagers that went off across the country. The devices belong to members of the Hezbollah terror group. Video shows the pagers blowing up at the same time in what appears to be a sophisticated and well-coordinated attack. Hezbollah pointed the finger at Israel and vowed retaliation. Jerusalem did not respond to the allegations. Escalating tensions between the two enemies have threatened to spiral into open war. Leaders in Washington are calling for a diplomatic solution.
We do want to see a diplomatic resolution to the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. We want to see one that allows the tens of thousands of Israelis who've been displaced from their homes and the tens of thousands of Lebanese who have been displaced from their homes to be able to return home, and that's what we are continuing to pursue.
One of those injured in the attack was Iran's ambassador to Lebanon. Tehran-backed Hezbollah has launched rockets at Israel near daily since October. Well, back in the nation's capital, Washington, lawmakers are raising alarms about the rise of hate crimes in the United States. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee highlighted how the trend has been growing since the October 7th attacks. But the two sides fought over where to focus, with Republicans prioritizing anti-Semitism, especially on college campuses, and Democrats focused on Arab and Muslim victims.
Since the horrific October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, we have seen an increase in attacks on Jewish Americans, Palestinian Americans, Arab Americans, and Muslim Americans.
60% of all religious-based hate crimes have been directed against the Jewish people. There's something going on here that needs to be addressed.
FBI's most recent statistics show more than 11,000 hate crimes in 2022, the highest since the FBI began reporting such data. And with that, let's bring in Rabbi Abraham Cooper of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Rabbi Cooper, thank you so much for joining us again. We're just weeks away from the one-year mark since the Hamas attack. Can you talk about how you've seen anti-Semitism in America change since then?
Well, there's no doubt that there's a tsunami, an organized tsunami of anti-Semitism that's targeting our students on campus, our Jewish institutions, and frankly, people who are obviously Jewish in the streets of our major cities. It is unprecedented. And on top of that, we've got the 24/7 social media machine that targets Jews, that demonizes Israelis. And by the way, I'm the former head of USERF, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Social media is also a place where Hindus, Christians, Muslims are also targeted for hate. But I was disappointed that today's hearings sort of put it all into one pot. I think there's enough time for hearings that will deal with all elements of it. I will tell you also that I was present outside of a synagogue in my neighborhood a few Sundays ago and was bear sprayed by quote unquote protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters, who were trying to actually penetrate a Jewish synagogue on a Sunday morning. Things have really escalated, and it's not an either-or situation, but the American Jewish community is hurting. It's targeted, whether it's UCLA or Columbia, University of Chicago, Duke, you can go from coast to coast. These are coordinated hate attacks, the kinds of language you use, exported by Hamas, right, pro-terrorist, anti-American. It deserves its own hearing in the United States Senate. as do other religious minorities, starting not only with Muslims, but may not be a minority in our country, but Christians are a major target of hate crimes around the world.
Rabbi Cooper, you just talked about targeting Jewish students at college campuses. Over the weekend, a University of Michigan student was attacked off campus for simply saying that he was Jewish. The school then put out a statement saying anti-Semitism has no place here. What, in your opinion, what more needs
John, it's not good enough. Putting out the boilerplate statements that we abhor it. You know, even if it's off campus, right now the major universities from coast to coast have a responsibility to their Jewish students. This kid was targeted by a group of thugs, maybe fellow students, maybe not. You have to coordinate with the local police. You have to agree on a definition, a baseline definition of what anti-Semitism is. And whether it's on or off campus, perpetrators of anti-Semitic hate crimes have to be held accountable. If they're not, if they're students, throw them out. If they're perpetrators in the community, you have to prosecute them.
That'll have to be the final word there. Rabbi Cooper, thank you so much from the Simon Wiesenthal Center. We appreciate your time and insight.
Thank you, John. God bless.
Well, in other news, we're learning more about the man accused of trying to assassinate former President Donald Trump. Ryan Routh had several run-ins with the law over the last 2 decades. The Wall Street Journal reporting that authorities were warned multiple times about his past violent threats and what's been described as his erratic behavior in support of Ukraine. While the FBI continues to investigate a motive, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis assigned state prosecutors to its own criminal investigation, even as former President Trump recounted the incident in his own words.
All of a sudden, we heard shots being fired in the air, and I guess probably 4 or 5. And it sounded like bullets, but what do I know about that? But Secret Service knew immediately it was bullets. And they grabbed me.
Shots fired by a Secret Service agent who spotted Routh camping out on Trump's Florida golf course. Investigators say the suspect never fired his weapon. Meanwhile, both Mr. Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are back on the campaign trail today. Trump with a town hall in Michigan and Harris in Pennsylvania, 2 important battleground states in the race for the White House. And speaking of the race for the White House, it's just 7 weeks until Election Day, with early voting now already underway in some states. And that means there's not much time for the 2 nominees to address key issues, nor for voters to do their research. CBN national security correspondent Caitlin Burke joins us now with a look at their foreign policy agendas. Caitlin, we spend a lot of time talking about the economy and inflation, but the truth is whoever wins will also have a lot of pressing issues on the global stage.
That's right, John. With Russia at war in Ukraine and increasing aggression in the Indo-Pacific from China, whoever takes over the White House will need a clear foreign policy agenda.
I think the place I'd begin is to recognize that even though the headlines often seem terrible, the United States remains in a fairly strong strategic position worldwide. We're not fighting any other great powers. We have the strongest system of alliances in history.
When it comes to those relationships, Vice President Kamala Harris says if elected, she would continue to stand by America's partners and ensure the U.S. remains a global leader. She accuses her opponent of taking a more isolationist approach.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself.
The former president has been critical of alliances like NATO, and if elected, is expected to insist member countries increase contributions to the organization and overall defense spending. As president, he significantly increased the Pentagon's budget and made China and Russia his national security priorities. During the recent ABC News debate, Trump pointed to strong relationships with both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, claiming Russia would not have invaded Ukraine if he were in office.
And I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done
before even becoming president.
Harris says her administration would continue to support Ukraine's defensive efforts against Russia for as long as it takes.
Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland.
I think both candidates have said useful things about how to go forward. Trump has underscored, including at last week's debate, that he wants the war to end. I'm sure Harris agrees, but she also wants to underscore that Ukraine is in the right and deserves to have its sovereignty and territory and people protected. I think if we begin with those points, we can actually work our way towards a reasonable policy.
Meanwhile, when it comes to China, Michael O'Hanlon with the Brookings Institution believes that Beijing's aggressive stance toward Taiwan will be a major issue for the next president.
China thinks Taiwan's part of China, and we try to deter China by telling Beijing we might respond with U.S. military force if they were to do so, even though there's no American treaty and it's not a formal alliance. That's a delicate line to walk, and it requires sophistication. And both Harris and Trump are either one would have to learn, I think, how to handle that well.
O'Hanlon tells CBN News he'd also like to hear more from both candidates regarding both North Korea and Iran, and encourages each to have a broad priority list when it comes to foreign policy.
I come back to a framing that General Joseph Dunford employed when he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2015 to 2019. And he used to talk about 4+1, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and terrorism/extremism/crime. And I think if we prepare against all 5 of those threats, we're probably doing about as well as we can by way of vigilance.
One last issue that combines key foreign and domestic policy is border security. That's a major topic for Trump, who says he would bring back border policies he had in place while also implementing large-scale deportations. Harris says she would work to bring back President Biden's bipartisan border security bill and focus on more comprehensive immigration reform. John?
Some major policy differences there. CBN's Caitlin Burke. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Coming up, false claims, rumors, and bomb threats. The dangerous new reality for Haitian immigrants in Ohio when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Springfield, Ohio is a city on edge facing dozens of bomb threats. Every morning, state police sweep through schools throughout the city for explosives, while at least 2 college campuses have closed and moved to remote learning. The mayor says the threats are directly linked to baseless claims promoted by former President Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, that Haitian migrants were abducting and eating people's pets. Ohio authorities insist there's no evidence of such behavior. Meanwhile, Haitian immigrants are relying on their faith and each other for support.
In the midst of adversity, we're still having faith in God. We believe. We are strong in faith. We believe in God. We believe in love. We believe in Christ.
Governor Mike DeWine says there are challenges, including health care and housing, with the number of migrants moving to Springfield, but they are there legally and that they want to work. Well, in this heated election season, at least one issue is bringing both Republicans and Democrats together, protecting children online. Before the August break, 91 senators voted to pass legislation shielding kids from harm they suffer from their time spent online. Now, as Congress comes back in session, the House could soon make it law. Lori Johnson reports.
In this heated election season, protecting kids online is one of the few issues that can bring politicians together. Before the August break, senators from both sides of the aisle agreed overwhelmingly 91-3 to pass legislation shielding kids from the rampant, well-documented harm they suffer from time spent online.
The Kids Online Safety Act requires social media companies to better protect underage users, as well as giving parents more control over their kids' social media use.
These bills will provide the appropriate guardrails necessary to protect kids against online threats.
Threats such as predators posing as other children and algorithms linked to a practice called doom scrolling.
We've heard stories about kids who were going through a depressed episode, and all of a sudden they were getting fed content that was encouraging them to take their own lives.
A new study shows social media causes 1 in 3 young people to feel like they have to be perfect, with girls scoring much higher than boys, especially in the area of body image.
Especially with all of the filtering that has been happening and all the apps that you can now use to, make yourself look like a completely different person.
A Facebook product manager turned whistleblower testified the company hides evidence their content harms kids.
So Facebook knows that they are leading young users to anorexia.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, stopped short of endorsing the Senate bill, while Snap, X, and Microsoft are supporting the safeguards. In addition to the mental health dangers associated with kids' online use, Christian leaders say spiritual health is also on the line.
I think most children will start walking away from their faith when they get their smartphones and they get social media, because it's teaching them such a different worldview of different than the Bible.
The House is expected to take up the measure when they return from their August recess. In the meantime, experts recommend parents take steps to minimize their child's phone use and maximize in-person relationships.
We're making sure that they're getting together. They're having that face-to-face. They're not feeling isolated because they're still in real, authentic relationships. What we had when we grew up.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thank you, Lori. Up next, how a massive cyber attack could paralyze the nation and what experts say you can do to prepare. Right after this. Welcome back. While some would-be attacks chant death to America, a silent attack could be what brings America to a standstill. The Commission on National Defense Strategy recently warned senators that the United States is unprepared for a cyber war that could plunge the nation into chaos. As Dale Hurd reports, security experts are working feverishly to ensure that doesn't happen.
This is the sound most people expect to hear in an attack on the American home front. But when war comes, we may only hear this. Silence, when many of the things we rely upon stop working. The Commission on the National Defense Strategy recently warned senators the United States is unprepared for a devastating cyber war that will bring life in towns and cities across America to a standstill.
The public is essentially clueless about the massive cyber attacks that could be launched any day by our adversaries, not just nation states, but rogue actors as well.
Experts see the next war beginning with a keyboard attack on America's critical infrastructure, threatening to cut off internet, electricity, water, transportation, and financial systems. It would mean almost everything from phones to gas pumps to cash machines to traffic lights suddenly stop working.
We're very vulnerable.
Cybersecurity expert Dr. Samantha Ravitch served on Congress's Cyberspace Solarium Commission and as a deputy national security advisor in the Bush White House. She's especially concerned about the lack of protection at America's many municipal water stations.
A soft underbelly of our country is our water system. And those water utilities don't often have the best cybersecurity. They have old technology.
After a cyber strike on your local water plant, your water tap might not work or your water could become dangerous to drink. In 2021, it was reported that a hacker tried to poison the water supply of Oldsmar, Florida, by increasing the levels of sodium hydroxide. The city now claims it was operator error, but in the last year, foreign actors from Iran and Russia have been linked to water facility attacks in Pennsylvania, Indiana, and Texas.
I've personally been inside over a dozen water and wastewater plants just in this region alone, and 100% of the water systems that I've been involved with have been extremely vulnerable to external attacks specifically.
Sean Waldman, CEO of Ohio-based Secure Cyber and a member of Cyber Ohio's Critical Infrastructure Working Group, says adversaries are constantly testing America's cyber defenses for vulnerabilities in preparation for war.
We're in a cyber Cold War today. We've got vulnerabilities with air traffic, radar systems. We've got vulnerabilities in our 911 systems.
In China's Operation Volt Typhoon, hackers were able to pre-position bots inside U.S. systems, and they remained undetected for years, spying on the U.S. military. One of those responsible for securing America's power supply in the next cyber war is Andy Bachman, senior grid strategist at the Idaho National Lab. While his team works to make the grid safe, Bachman admitted there are 1 million vulnerabilities and a cyber war could be bad.
Yeah, if this came to pass in the United States and we lost critical infrastructure services that we take for granted, that we come to expect, there will be much wailing and gnashing of teeth. See the recent CrowdStrike thing. And that wasn't even a hack. That was just human error misconfiguration with a huge impact, right?
In a cyber war, hackers will not be content to just turn things off. They'll also try to force potentially dangerous sites like dams and nuclear plants to malfunction. In 2013, Iranian hackers gained access to the control system of a dam in Rye Brook, New York, before being caught. The experts we talked to all believe cyber war is coming. All are personally preparing, some with stocks of food, water, and fuel.
I think that every household can be more prepared for 30 days off the grid. Think about your water. Think about your food stocks. Think about your emergency communications plans. Think about, do you have people in your house that need medicines that are refrigerated?
Even though U.S. experts know the next war will begin in cyberspace and are scrambling to beef up America's defenses, they also know that in this very internet-connected age, there are likely too many vulnerabilities to defend. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. Coming up, an incredible dancing duo with a unique act. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a dancing duo is heading to the final round of the show America's Got Talent, proving they may have what it takes to become top dog. Ronnie Sagi is a dog trainer from Tel Aviv who dances alongside her 2-year-old border collie, appropriately named Rhythm. The two have captured hearts and high scores with their performances first going viral online and then dancing on the big stage at America's Got Talent. Sagi and Rhythm are scheduled to perform tonight in the finals, and we wish them and all the competitors well. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night. Hope to see you right back here tomorrow.